Welcome to Panels and Borders. I'm Dominic, and this is a series I'm doing called Comic Back Issue, where I discuss back issues from my personal collection. And the comic I'm going to talk about this week is Detective Comics issue 578. Now, this is the conclusion to a 4-part series, and I just want to take a moment to talk about what this comic book means to me personally. This comic is the comic that got me into Batman. And I've been a Batman fan ever since. This comic book came out in the summer of 1987. I was 9 years old at the time. And in the town I grew up in, at this point in time, there wasn't any comic book stores. The only places you could get comics were off the newsstands at grocery stores, drugstores, and bookstores. Well, one summer day, I went up to the mall with my dad. And I went into the little bookstore there that I used to frequently buy my comics at, and I was browsing the newsstand, and this cover jumped right out at me. I thought it looked just totally awesome. Batman with this wild-looking cape, a gun in one hand, this really strange-looking weapon in the other, this cool black bat silhouette in behind the Detective Comics logo, and I had to have it. Now, before this, I'd always been a Spider-Man fan. But once I got this, that changed everything. Batman was my number one guy. I still like Spider-Man, but he was no longer number one. He lost that place. And on top of that, I was never a DC fan before this comic book. I only bought Marvel comics. I just had no interest in DC comics. It just didn't do anything for me. But this comic was like my gateway drug. I started with Batman and then eventually branched off into other characters and other DC books and things like that. So, yeah, this is the comic this is the linchpin. This is what got me into Batman. This is what got me, if I had not picked up this comic or I'd somehow missed out on this comic, I would never became a Batman fan. So this is a pretty important comic. Also, it's my favorite comic book of all time. Like, I read this comic book when I was a kid until it literally fell apart. And Todd McFarlane's artwork, on the cover and throughout the comic, is what sold me on it. And he made Batman look so cool and so awesome that I was just hooked from then on there. So now the story is Chapter 4, Batman Year 2, Mike W. Barr and Todd McFarlane. And we have this really cool collage here by Todd McFarlane. You have the silhouette of Batman and the Reaper against the moon there as they're squaring off against each other with the building under construction in the background. You have Rachel Caspian with her, nun habit on, and Joe Chill in the background there. And that Todd McFarlane drawn Batman's impractically large cape just looks so cool. Like, it would never work in real life, but on the comic page, it looks so awesome. The artwork's really good. That artwork is so good, it was swiped by Bob Kane. So the other thing I wanted to point out, as you can see, Mike W. Barr and Todd McFarlane. So the art team was switched up a little bit. There's no Alfredo Alcala. He inked parts 2 and 3, but the last part here was penciled and inked by Todd McFarlane. And I'll kind of get into more of that at the end of the video after I've done the overview of the story here. So the story begins with they had set a trap in the last issue for the Reaper, and it didn't work. The Reaper escaped. So now Mr. Morowitz is, given Joe Chill the third degree. We had this plan. It didn't work. We lost the whole shipment of drugs, which Joe Chill responds, yes, but, however, I saw how the Reaper and Batman operate. So next time I'll take out the Reaper. And then, Mr. Morowitz responds with, and don't forget, take out Batman too, right? And which Joe Chill responds, don't worry, he'll be going in hell right behind the Reaper. Little do they know the Reaper is listening to their conversation. So the Reaper tracks down this guy. He is a police informant, and the Reaper tells him that you're going to tell the police that there's a huge crime meeting that's going to take place on Friday. And he tells him, if you will not tell the police that you got the information from me. And then he proceeds to tell the guy, and if you do tell the police that, I'm going to be the last thing you ever see. Bruce Wayne is out on another date with Rachel Caspian, and here he proposes to her, proposes marriage to her. He has the engagement ring. hid inside of a fortune cookie. He's going to give up being Batman. She's going to give up being a nun. They're going to get together and become married, give up their, their alter egos, so to speak. And however, we see something kind of ominous on this page here that's going to foreshadow something in the story. Bruce Wayne's fortune from his fortune cookie. You may avoid your fate, but never escape it. Now we move on to Commissioner Gordon and his men. They're stalking out the warehouse where the meeting's going to take place. And they know it's a trap, but it's just too good to pass up. So they take out the guards and they storm the warehouse. A big gun battle ensues. The guys start to escape. And the Reaper shows up. He starts slaughtering guys. And Mr. Morowitz tries to escape, but he doesn't. He gets killed by the Reaper here. And I just want to take a second to talk about this panel. Now, there wasn't a lot of hardcore violence in comics when I was a kid because of the Comics Authority Code. So usually comics that had kind of stuff like that, they would always have a warning, mature content inside and suggest it for mature readers. However, this didn't have any of that. And then you got this scene in there where the Reaper's impaling this guy. And I just thought, wow, it looked so cool and like hardcore. Today, it's nothing by today's standards. But back then, it was like really, really awesome. Great piece of artwork. Now, Batman shows up in the police vehicle. He smashes into the warehouse. He saves Gordon, where Gordon was almost killed by the Reaper. Batman squares off again. This is, I think round 3 or 4. And they're going to fight again. But Joe Chill, he tries to take out the Reaper. Hits the gas tank of the police van. The police van explodes. Batman saves Joe Chill. But the warehouse just goes up in flames. Now, Commissioner Gordon finds out that Batman was actually wasn't working with the Mafia. He was just using them to get to the Reaper. And so Commissioner Gordon now realizes what Batman was telling him earlier about how he would have to go undercover or, cross a lot of lines and go against the police. Part of the plan that doesn't make any sense. I'll talk more about that at the end. Now it moves on to Bruce Wayne goes to Rachel and he tells her, I have to go do something. And if you knew what it was, you probably would think differently of me. She tells him, no matter what it is you have to do, I'll be here waiting for you. She doesn't let him tell her. She stops him. And then Bruce Wayne, goes to take care of business. And that business is he's going to kill Joe Chill, the man who murdered his parents. So Batman is going to cross the line that he never would cross, and that's kill a criminal. So Joe Chill wakes up, and he's in one of Batman's secret hideouts. And Batman tells him all the mob bosses are dead. And Joe Chill responds with, well, you know what, they ordered me to take you out, but since they're all dead, there's no point now. What say we shake hands and call it quits? Batman responds with, come with me, I've got something to show you. So Batman brings him to Crime Alley and asks him, does he recognize the place? And Joe Chill has no idea what he's talking about. And Batman then proceeds to tell him, 20 years ago, you tried to take a necklace from a woman. Her husband tried to stop you, and you shot them both. And then Joe Chill says, well, how do you know that? That's what you say. And then Bruce Wayne takes off his mask and says, because I'm their son. I was there. I saw you do it. Joe Chill tries to go for his gun. Batman disarms him. And then Joe Chill kind of challenges him. He says, well, just do it. If you're going to do it, just do it. I don't think you have guts to do it. Joe Chill thinks Batman is soft because Batman never would kill. And, he basically challenges him. And he says, if you're going to do it, then do it. So Bruce Wayne is about to do it, but the Reaper beats him to it and kills Joe Chill. Now, I just want to talk about this scene for a second because there's actually, that I know of, there's 3 versions of this scene where Batman is robbed of the chance to kill the man who killed his parents. Now, the first one is the pre-crisis one where Batman and Robin find out who Joe Chill is, and in that point, Joe Chill is a big-time mob boss. Batman confronts him, pulls his mask off, and tells him, I'm their son. You killed my parents years ago, and now Batman's going to kill him. where Joe Chill freaks out. He runs into the next room where his men are, and he tells them, Batman just told me who he was, and he told me I'm the reason he became Batman because I plugged his parents years ago. And then his men, react, and they pull their guns, and they say, well, you're the reason that Batman sent me up the river. You're the reason that we have Batman to deal with now. So they all just plug, Joe Chill and kill him. And then they realize the mistake they made. They say to themselves, holy cow, we, jumped the gun here and shot him. He was about to tell us who Batman was. And so they rob Batman of the chance to kill Joe Chill. Now this is this is after Crisis, so this is new continuity. And in this version, it's the Reaper that does it. Bruce Wayne is about to kill Joe Chill, and then then Reaper kills him. So it always leaves you with the question of, if no one had interfered, would Bruce Wayne kill Joe Chill? Now, the third version was actually from the movie Batman Begins. And in that version, they're bringing Joe Chill out of the courtroom, and Bruce Wayne shows up. He has a gun hidden on him. He's going to go up. He's going to kill Joe Chill, but another assassin beats him to the punch and kills Joe Chill. And in that one, again, he's robbed of the chance to kill Joe Chill. So there's always that question, what if Batman was never interfered with and he got a chance? Would he have killed Joe Chill? I think that would make a really good Elseworld story. If they did an Elseworld story where Batman confronts Joe Chill, nothing stops him, there is no interference, and Batman kills him. Now Batman's crossed the line. Where Batman has no kill rule, he crossed that line, he kills a criminal. And it would be interesting to see what path his crime-fighting career would have taken if he had, gotten a chance and actually got to kill Joe Chill. So now the Reaper knows who Batman is, and he tells him, let's finish this battle at the monument that you created to your father, this ironic battle where Batman is kind of puzzled, doesn't understand that yet anyway. So then they square off, they have their final battle. Batman gets the best of the Reaper, and the Reaper tumbles out of the, building, and he's just hanging on to that I-beam there. And now, there's something interesting about this scene, because this story is supposed to explain why Batman doesn't use guns. So, in this scene, I think is kind of like the linchpin of why he doesn't use guns from the writer's point of view. And I think it might be overlooked by a lot of the readers. So I know I've definitely overlooked it a lot. So basically, Batman sees that it's Caspian. He's the Reaper. And he tells him, come on in, it's over. Where the Reaper replies, yes, and I'm glad. I didn't think you were a killer. I see now I was wrong. Then the Reaper falls to his death. Before he falls, he says, but now I know you will make a fine replacement for me. So now, then Batman has this panel, Batman has this shocked look. So now the Reaper saw that Batman was going to kill Joe Chill. The Reaper always thought that Batman, would never kill any criminals. He saw that Batman was going to cross the line. Batman was going to kill a criminal. So now the Reaper approves of Batman because now Batman has taken on the Reaper's methods. And then Batman realizes, if I had done that, I was going to do that. I was going to become the Reaper, that which I was hunting and despised. And so this is why Batman finally decides to put away the gun. So he puts the gun away in the foundation of the building, dedicated to his father. And this is why, so this is the linchpin scene, I think, to explain why Batman doesn't use guns. Now, even though this is the linchpin scene, I don't think it works. Because it's kind of like, it doesn't really make sense that you got to explain it, why Batman doesn't use guns, because we know that, because his parents were killed. So I think this is their way of, he realizes, it finally dawns on him what the Reaper says to him. So then it shocks him, I've become the Reaper. I almost became the Reaper. So now, from now on, no more using guns. But to me, it still doesn't really work. So then Bruce Wayne returns to Rachel Caspian. And now she knows by this point that her father is the Reaper. And Bruce Wayne tells her, we can, forget about all this. We can take off together. But she tells him she can't. She, has to make amends. So she tells him that she's going to become a nun. She's going to go and take her vows. She can't marry him. He understands because, of course, he's Batman, so he understands all of this. And he leaves. So once again, Batman's kind of a tragic character. His fate, as seen in the fortune cookie, he can avoid his fate, but he can never escape it. And his fate is to be Batman. And now onto the final scene with Leslie Thompkins. Bruce Wayne has set up a clinic in his dad's name for her to do her work while he's out doing hers. She asks him, are you happy? And he just wants her to be happy. He's given up on his own happiness. He says it doesn't matter. And then we end the comic off with this last panel. And I just want to talk about this panel for a bit because it is just an awesome image of Batman. It's one of my favorite Batman images. That huge cape billowing in the wind as he swings on the bat rope. The city in the background really makes Batman pop off the page there. And the bat rope, all the crazy line going everywhere. And you'd see this again, Todd McFarlane would use this again with Spider-Man and Spider-Man's webs. You would see Spider-Man with all these crazy webs as he swang through the city. So it just looks awesome. I wish I had this as a print. It would be just a great print to have on the wall. So that's my overview of, Batman Year 2. This is the last installment. And just some final thoughts. I want to start off with things that I think work with this story. And I think some of the things that work, I think the Reaper works. He's a great character. I really like the Reaper. I love the design. He looks awesome. And I really like that he's like the mirror image of Batman. He's like what Batman would have became if Batman had crossed the line. And the line that Batman almost crosses in this story, but then at the last minute pulls himself back. So I think that really works. Also, the romance between Bruce Wayne and Rachel, I think, is pretty good. I think that works. And the fact that, ironically, her father is the Reaper. So, and you kind of have almost like a mirror image of the Reaper and Batman. Then you almost have a mirror image of Bruce Wayne and Rachel. She's devoting her life to becoming a nun because of the evil in the world. That was brought on by what happened to her parents. Just like Bruce Wayne became Batman because of what happened to his parents. They have very similar childhood experiences. Now, and also the artwork is really solid, especially in the first issue and the last issue. Now, the only thing about the artwork that doesn't work, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit, is parts 2 and 3 was inked by Alfredo Alcala. Now, I like Alfredo Alcala as a penciler, and I do like his artwork, but I think it was a mistake to let him ink over Todd McFarlane's artwork. I think they should have let Todd McFarlane ink his own work, like they did with this last part here. It looks so much better when Todd McFarlane inks his own stuff, and I think Alfredo Alcala tried to make it look too much like his style, and I think it repressed Todd McFarlane's artwork. And I think it was a mistake to let Alfredo Alcala ink it, in my opinion anyway. Because I never got to see the other parts of this story until 1991, actually. I only ever read the last part, part 4, and until the trade paperback came out in 91, I was able to get the complete story. I remember being really disappointed with parts 2 and 3 because I was expecting all of it to look like this last issue here, Todd McFarlane's artwork. And I couldn't really understand why it looked so different, and then I realized that, because it was because of the inker. So that's my opinion on the artwork. And now what I think doesn't work with this Batman Year 2 is his plan to join up with the Mafia. It doesn't make sense. It's a huge plot hole to flush out the Reaper. Whatever he's trying to draw the Reaper or flush out the Reaper, he fights the Reaper like a bunch of times in the story. And then at the end, he finally defeats him. So he could have done that without joining up with the mob. I guess what they're going for is a younger Batman, but still, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, if Batman got beat, he would have formulated a plan to defeat the Reaper next time he came across him. There was no need for him to team up with the mob. I thought that it just creates a big plot hole. And on top of that, the second thing I don't like is the gun thing. That doesn't really make sense, why he's using the gun. Especially when it's, especially when his philosophy on guns is so, put there concretely in the part 1, where he tells the punks, if you put your faith in those guns, you've already lost. So the reason we know why he doesn't. You don't need another reason why he doesn't use guns. Like, he doesn't use guns because his parents were killed. A gun was used to kill his parents, so that's why he hates guns. Now he's not going to change his mind, take out guns. Now he needs another reason because now I'm going to become just like the Reaper. Another reason to give up the guns. To me, it just doesn't work. Fall short. It doesn't work at all. I think it really, really hurts year 2. So I'm not blind to the flaws of the story, even though it is my favorite Batman story. I'm not blind to the flaws of it at all. So that's everything I got to say about this issue and this series. I hope you enjoyed this video. And now for the next episode I'm going to do, it's going to be a 6-parter, and it's going to be Star Wars related. So that's all I'm going to say for now. And so if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment, and I will see you at the next one.